How you do, cousins? I'm old Rusty here. I'm your cousin and you're mine, and I'm a full-time reseller. It's what I do. I buy and sell things to make a buck or two, and this whole channel's dedicated to helping you do the same thing. We've got so much to cover in this video. I'll tell you what. We're going to go into a bunch of jewelry stuff, which I know a lot of you like, but not just that. Many other things as well. We got bottles to talk about, pipes, books, instruments, and so much more. Please join us today. I think you may learn something. Without further ado, let's just get into this. Well, here we are, folks, out at thrift stores and antique stores. We're going to get into a lot of cool stuff today, but we want to show you some of these pieces of jewelry that we were looking at, as well as other items. Like, we came across this really cool set of pipes, and you'll see that, you know, Peaches and I are kind of examining this. Some of these have lucite stems, maybe bakelite stems. You've got some meerschaum. You've got the traditional briar, but then look at this. We had some of these that I guess these are blanks. Maybe they hadn't been fully drilled. Maybe they were used as examples for how to, you know, cut in or the size and shape to craft other ones. And you have some that are kind of more intricately carved. There's a smaller one, which was really cool. They wanted something like, oh gosh, like $140 or something.
I think it was close to 140 bucks.
140 bucks, something like that, yeah. And so we were trying to determine, well, you know, if there's 15, 16 in here, and you divide it out, and you look at the brands, and you got this old corncob one. Would it make sense? Would it not? Had another little stem that was just a hold, I think, a cigarette or something. I was very close to pulling the trigger, but I actually decided against it. I got some other pipes in, which we'll show later in this video. Pipes, folks, they can have good values, and the sell-through rate is great. So I like those. We're just kind of going through, and I was kind of measuring with my fingertips there and trying to figure out what I was going to do. But
yeah, looking at these interesting postcards, really cool pictures, some really cool prints, some foreign scenes from some castles or some really nice places. But this person wanted, you know, $1 per postcard there, as you can see. You know, what's interesting is looking at these postcards. They're all squished into this box. At one point, they were probably in really good condition, but after hundreds of people, who knows how many people like me, coming through and just thumbing through these postcards, it really wears down the condition. You can see the edges. They just get folded over, rolled over. But anyway, that's a really interesting photo. The guy, a gentleman smoking a cigar while he's taking that photo. Really fascinating.
And then we were kind of looking at some of these old pins, these old pin backs, political stuff. You got some Disney in here. We got some other political stuff, state stuff. You know, some of these can be really valuable if they're old.
Here we are looking at some of these, quote, antique or vintage mason jars. Don't be fooled, folks. If it doesn't say 1858 on it, it's not necessarily worth, like this tag you can see, it's $80. That's too much. Only 1858 jars, those are the ones that are going to get you 60, 65 bucks.
I agree. We were getting into some other jewelry here, just looking at some of the prices. You see some sterling stuff. I had this little box here that had a couple old class rings and a couple of watches, a bull over there. $50 is a lot, but I was like, well, if one of those rings is sterling, it might be worth it. This was interesting. We found this kind of brooch here. It was really cool. I believe this is probably a Czech piece or maybe an Austrian. I would probably have pulled the trigger on $29, honestly, except you saw there I was pointing it was missing the stone. There was some cool stuff over here. These old gold-filled glasses, $26.95. It's way too expensive. I'd only pay $8 for those. Some cool old Coca-Cola signs, though this one is plastic, not that old metal stuff you want to see. and then just gobs and gobs of jewelry. Really cool stuff. Most of it was overpriced, as typically happens in an antique store. However, we did come across a few items that we would love to show you and sort of talk about our reasons. Always love to see some old marbles in these stores as well. It was really kind of neat seeing those. But then, you know, I get in here and I find one of these awesome old cameras. I've got a little bit of a camera collection here at the warehouse. I got a bunch from the early 1900s. This was the same. It's from 1905. And what I really liked about this one, the bellows were in really good shape, and then also the sliding plate on the bottom, just that beautiful wood. Certainly could have been cleaned up. And then of course we walk into more jewelry. Had some stuff, some sterling silver up here. That piece there, like starfish, probably would have been a good buy. I didn't pull the trigger. Also, that one with sort of the leaf on the upper right, kind of a blue and clear rhinestones, would have maybe been okay. And then every once in a while you come across a piece that's signed, decent brands. Here's one, Crown Trifari, but you know what? They already knew it and they already had it priced, so nope. Thank you guys for joining us again for one of these videos where we try to go through things that we've bought and sold. Peaches has been with me doing some of this, and so he's going to be kind of involved in this as well today, kind of talking through some stuff. I'm going to go through some of the things that we have. We're going to get to some jewelry in a moment, but before we do that, I want to kind of talk about some of these other items that some of them are more typical of the stuff that we buy and sell, and others are less typical, but I'll explain why we got into them instead. Let's just start with some of these bottles. And we're not going to talk about these a lot, but I bought this lot actually today at an estate sale. These and even some others. The others were in worse condition. They're either going to be donated or just trashed. But I bought this whole lot for $10. And I'll tell you, the reason I bought it, first of all, is that the bottles, most of them are smaller. So I don't like to sell and ship large glass ceramic pieces because it's just so, there's such a risk there that it's going to get damaged in transit, and it takes a lot more time and effort to package it appropriately to make it safe. But in this lot, this one bottle here, it says the Levi Garrett and Sons. You can see it's got a nice label on the front of it there. It is a snuff bottle, it says. Tobacco, Scotch, and Rapee Snuff from Philadelphia, and it still has the label over the top of it, although it has a cork in it. It had been opened and all the contents have been depleted. But this one bottle selling for in the $14 to $20 range. So let's just say I can sell it for $14. All my money is back on this one sale, and then I'm into profit. And then if we want to approach the other things that are here, we've got several delightful little pieces that we can sell. We got a nice blue, cobalt blue is what they like to call it, bottle. It's got, you know, heavily rusted, but it still has the cap on it, and it can be unscrewed. On the bottom, you've got a round pontil here, so you know that this was a handmade bottle. Also, there's the absence of any sort of line down where they would have been conjoined as they were made. That is more indicative of bottles that are newer. But older antique and vintage bottles don't have that. They're hand blown oftentimes, and so this bottom piece is where it snaps off after they have blown it. Right here, I also have this kind of like a, I wouldn't call it an emerald green. It's more like a, it is green, I mean, for sure. It says the word pear on the bottom, so I'm going to have to do some research. Does that mean that this had some kind of contents that had to do with pear, like a schnapps or something like that? Was this some sort of medicinal remedy of some kind? I don't know, to be honest with you. But this one is a little bit newer. It does have the seam, which if you zoom in here, you'll be able to see that there is a seam here, as I've talked about, all the way down one side where these pieces were put together. But it is still old. It incorporates several little bubbles and stuff in the glass, so it's not clear like bottles that you see today. I don't know exactly what the rest of these will sell for, but it doesn't matter in a way because I've already got all of my investment money back. Here's another one that's an interesting shape. Again, we do have a seam. It's missing the cap, but it's a nice green color. Maybe I make a lot of some of these smaller ones that are roughly the same color, some of these green ones, as you can see here. This one, old, it's real rough on the bottom. This was a hand blown. It's got a bump here. And there's several telltale signs that this is an older bottle. Same, over here we got a smaller one. This has got some numbers and some things on the bottom here. So that will be nice. This is cool, like little heart-shaped one. Don't know what it's for. It's got this interesting little cap here. But I think I'll do okay with this. Plus, we've got this interesting container, no lid. I can use it at the warehouse, or maybe I can sell that too. Now we're going to talk about a few books. Like, I love to buy books because oftentimes when you find them at thrift stores, Goodwill, places like that, they're quite cheap. Sometimes hardback books are only $2 or $3. If you find very special ones, special editions, or specifically older books, they can bring lots of money. I'm going to show you a few that I bought. I was not looking for these necessarily, but I was at a Goodwill. I was in the bin section as well, which is just sort of like stuff thrown in a bin. And I got a handful of books here. Here's a couple that I got by the author Lois Lowry. Now, Lois Lowry wrote a lot of children's books. She has one that I actually love. It's called The Giver. If you've never read The Giver, you should read it. I think that it is an incredible book, and it's written for a younger audience to be able to read as far as the level of language that's used. But The Giver is actually in a series. So you've got The Giver, and then there's 2 more of those books, and that's what you're looking at here. The next one's called Messenger, and the last one is called Sun. So these are hardback editions. They've got these these dust jacket covers on them. Now, these at one time had been in like a library or a school library, so they had been checked out. Some of these might even have stamps on the inside, things like that. This one right here says the Asheville Buncombe Library System, Asheville, North Carolina. This is in western North Carolina, where I live. So that's where this must have come from at some point, but I only spent $2 to $3 on these. What I'm going to do is hold on to these until I find a copy of The Giver, preferably a hardback edition, and then I'm going to sell these as a lot so that the people buying it can have the entire book collection in one purchase. Another one I got was also a children's book. It's the story of Babar, I don't know how you pronounce it, but this is a pretty well-known and heavily read book from years ago. When I first saw it, I got excited because I thought, well, maybe this is a first edition, in which case, even in the condition, it could bring really good money on a $2 or $3 investment. You can see the little sticker here that Goodwill had. But of course, I go in and I look, I see a couple of things. First off, we have a name. If this were in pencil, I could erase that. Unfortunately, it's in black marker or a Sharpie. That's not coming off, folks. So that brings down the value, unfortunately. We've got a sticker here. This at one time was the property of Bruce. And I hope Bruce got to read this and got some enjoyment out of it. I could maybe try to remove that, but I'm worried I would rip some paper off. But as I keep coming into it, I'm going to notice down here the copyright statement, and we'll see that the original copy of this was made in 1933. However, 1960 is here, which means this is a reprint some 30 years later, 27 years later, in 1960. It is still a vintage book. It still has collectability, and I am confident that I can sell this for much more than I paid for it. The last couple here came in some other lots of things I'm going to show you later. This right here says Lessing. It's selected prose work by apparently someone who wrote named Lessing. I'm not familiar with that particular writer. Again, Olivia Rainey Library in Raleigh, North Carolina. So this made its way from about mid-state all the way over to the western side from someone's collection that they donated, and it's kind of got the cool looking area here where you would stick that little card. You young kiddos don't know that because so much stuff now is done on computers, but back in the day you'd have this with lines, you'd write your name, you'd check it in, check it out, that sort of thing. Not sure what the value of that is yet, but I know I'm going to make all my money back and profit on the rest of the stuff, so whatever I get, I'll be happy with. And then this, we have Botanical Folk Tales of Great Britain and Ireland. Listen, my loved one that I adore, Flo, I almost forgot her name, don't tell her I did that, but Flo is my sweetheart. And the thing about Flo is that she really loves gardening and doing stuff outdoors. And so don't tell her if you see her, but I'm going to hold on to this and give this to her as a little gift because I think she'll enjoy it. Hopefully there's some information in here that will help her. and or maybe just an interest in reading with that same genre of interest that she has. Books can bring lots of money. I find books that are from even as early as the 16 and 1700s, believe it or not, at thrift stores sometimes for $10 or less. They're usually leather bound, and their copyright numbers are in Roman numerals. So if you find a leather bound book and the numbers in Roman numerals, pull out that little pocket computer of yours and search on Google and find out how old it is, and then do a quick search on eBay. You will probably find that that thing is going to be well more than you're going to pay. So a lot of you out there who are maybe not musically inclined or are not that interested in music might not care about musical instruments as a type of item to buy and sell. I, however, have been playing musical instruments since I was young. It's really a cool thing. I think I get a lot of pleasure from doing it. And over time, as I have bought and sold hundreds of instruments, held things, and played on them, I've learned quite a bit. And one of the things I've learned is how to spot when things are damaged, or how to repair and refurbish instruments that have either been damaged or just not taken very well care of over time. And so sometimes I will find a nice deal on something and I'll buy it to resell. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of some mandolins right now, and later in the video we'll talk about a guitar. Now, I bought this last week. What you're looking at is a vintage Gibson model A, probably just an A, maybe an AO, though I'm not exactly sure. One of the telltale signs of the models, not that you necessarily care, is the rosette that goes around the sound hole. So for A2 models, for example, there's actually 2 line rosettes that go around the sound hole. So if you see something, without even looking real close, if you see that there are 2 lines around this, you know it's an A2. The different models, A1, A2, A3, A4, have a lot to do with different types of components that are used, and also just the quality. So, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. But the point is, what you're looking at right here is an A model mandolin. If you've ever seen a violin, they have these holes on the side that almost look like S's kind of, but they call those F holes. This is obviously an oval hole in the center, much like a guitar would look like. So A body style mandolins are like this. They have the oval hole and they're a teardrop shape, unlike those other F-style mandolins that are typically used for bluegrass and that sort of thing. On the bottom of this pickguard here, it says patent March 30th, 09. So this is a 1909, roughly, maybe as late as a 1910 or 1911. Sometimes they used older components on an instrument that was made later. But this is a really good condition mandolin. I paid about $800 for it. But in the condition that it's in, it's actually worth somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500. And I have not really had to do hardly anything to this. So this was an item where I bought it just because I saw that it was undervalued and I wanted to sell it and make money. The only downside to this instrument, even though it's almost entirely complete, oftentimes you find these pick guards missing or cracked because they're quite fragile. They can crumble. Is that, we got a little bit of scratching on the back, folks. This is an over 100-year-old instrument, so that's not a big deal. And we've got open back tuners. The thing that's bad about this, and I say bad, is just that they're super tight. Like it's hard for Rusty. Now, I know, I may not look like it, but I got a little bit of strength in me still. But whenever I'm trying to tune these up, it gets super tight. So what I have to do is get some oil, excuse me, pronounce that wrong, some oil, and I need to put in here and work this out and kind of loosen it up and get it operating fine. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell this and it's good. But the reason I showed you this first is to give you sort of a compare and contrast to this instrument, which I bought a week later. What you're looking at is also an A-style Gibson mandolin. This one is from 1909 or thereabouts. This is dated at 1928. So you can see rough shape, rough condition as a compare and contrast. The problem with this instrument is that someone did not take care of it. They also attempted to do a refinish job, which you're not seeing the example of what it looked like when I got it, but believe you me, this thing looked ugly. I mean, it was spray painted, it had wall paint on it, it was stark white, even though if you know these models, they never came with a white top. And then on the back, it was this muddy, murky, kind of just yucky, chocolatey brown, opaque color that you could scratch off with your nail. It was off-gassing, it stunk. It was just it was like a crime, honestly, against beautiful old Gibson instruments. So what old Rusty did was I went and I sanded almost all of it off. If you look closely, you'll still see some of the remnants of the white paint that was on there. I still have a little bit of sanding left to do, but I intend to refinish this model. It's got a couple other issues which I'll talk about in a moment, but essentially my plan after I have refinished this, and I mean, folks, look at the beautiful wood grain in this. The top of this is kind of peculiar. You wouldn't see this because it would have been stained darker, but you've got this interesting line in the wood. That's just a part of the wood grain, folks. It's beautiful. We've got basically a spruce top here and probably like a birch wood on the back. It's a light color. It's very lightweight. I attempted to put a little bit of stain I had here at the warehouse on it. I did not like the color, and I would do multiple coats, obviously. But what I'm going to do is resand this a little bit more, and I'm going to get something that's more of a reddish color to kind of match better the color this originally would have been. It's possible that this would have been more of sort of a like a coffee brown color, top, side, and back, but it could have been that it was a light spruce top and a red back. But the point is, I've already resanded it. I'm going to restain that puppy. I'm going to sand and polish up these frets. I'm going to put the hardware, the tuners back on. The nut is okay. It comes with what they call a floating bridge. This is actually not attached. It's only held against the instrument from the tension of the strings. So I have one. Unfortunately, it's not the original one. It's an aftermarket one. I have to make sure that it is at the right pitch of the top of the curvature of this instrument. I have to put another tailpiece on, which again will not be like this original one with the Gibson script logo on it. But it's okay. It's functional. It'll make it work. Once I get the tuners back on, I'll string it up. It's going to play. It's going to look a lot better. I paid just under $400 for this instrument. If this instrument had original parts and had not had anything done with the finish, it would be worth in the range of $1,200 to $1,500. Because I'm doing the work and we'll see how it turns out. I'm expecting I can probably sell it somewhere in the $800 to $1,000 range as long as it's playing, it's functional, it plays well. And someone might be interested in seeing just kind of that someone put some TLC into it to get her back looking good again. I love these old instruments. They sound so great, and someone needs to be playing this. It shouldn't look, I don't know, like it came out of someone's garage that had been there for 50 years. Here was an interesting little device that came in a box lot that I got today at thrift store. This lot cost me $15. And there's several things. I'll show you a couple others here in a moment. But I'd never come across one of these before. I'm not exactly sure. I'm almost certain that these would have held like maybe an ink pen on one side, maybe a pencil on the other, maybe ink pens on both sides. But you're looking at two items here. One side is like a clock, and it has an alarm. If you also look very closely to where my thumbnail is, it says Germany. So this is a German-made, item. Over here we have what looks to be a barometer, and it says, stormy, rain, change. I don't know what change means. It was moving from one to the other, I guess. Fair, and then very dry, which is cool. I've never seen these before. These rotate back and forth. Now, I will note that this one seems real sturdy. However, Peaches turned me on to noticing as a point of potential concern that this is a little bit loose. But he noted that if you turn it over, you see these flathead screws. What we'll do is we'll just remove this heavy base, which is some sort of piece of metal. Looks like cast iron, honestly. And underneath there should be some little nuts that we can tighten this up. Now, I don't know how well these work. I could remove these screws and see what's going on here, but this is set up to be cranked and operate almost like an automatic watch or something like that, where it goes after you've cranked it up. So we're going to see if it works in good condition. I think the Peaches noted these can sell in the $30 to $40 range. Again, we paid $15 for the lot, including this. So if we sell this, even for half that, $20, we've already made all our money back. We're in the profit, and then everything else we sell is just going to be gravy. I did come across a handful of these postcards at an antique store recently, and I was surprised and happy to find the prices of these. We're looking at $1 to $4 a piece, and the first couple here are not real photo postcards, but I found them fascinating. This one says our 25 presidents. So at the time, there were only 25 presidents, and this is really more of like a novelty card. It's almost like an advertising card for buying these exact postcards. It says if you wanted to buy 1,000, it's $7.50 for 1,000 of these. I'd take that right now if I could buy 1,000 of these for $7.50. This was cool. I'm going to give this to a friend of mine who I know is from New Zealand. This says Reception of the American Fleet in Auckland, which is the capital. Is that right? Is it Wellington? Maybe Wellington's the capital. I can't remember, but it's the largest city on the North Island, on the northern tip of the island. That's where you would fly into if you came from the United States, for example. But this is an older card, $1, and this would be fun for him to get, so I'm going to give that to him. Here's a couple others that say, hearty congratulations. This is the whole idea of the stork bringing the baby. It's the kind of thing you'd send to your friends or loved ones when you find out that they're expecting. I think it's sweet. They're in good condition, embossed, nice German-made postcards. Then the rest of these folks are just interesting. Here's a lady with some fish. Here's a little boy down by a lake. Here's a family in a little carriage going on a ride. Here is a scene of one of those ceremonies that the Navy did where they would celebrate naval officers or people who had crossed the equator or crossed the prime meridian, and they dressed up and they had these cool ceremonies. Here's one where somebody's going to get a ride being pulled by an ostrich, some puppy dogs, a little girl with a bicycle, and so on. All of these have some really fascinating backstories, I'm sure. There are definitely collectors for these kinds of things. Postcards, especially real photo postcards, like this one, a man on a sled with a bunch of dogs. Probably in Alaska, maybe in Canada, I'm not sure, but I've never come across one like this. If you find things that are really odd, bizarre, strange, unique, it may be the only one of its kind, folks, and real photo postcards are what they sound like. They are from a photograph that someone just like you and me took in their life, and they had sent off to be made as a postcard to send as the primary way of communication at that time with their friends and loved ones. If you find these, do some research, but these can sometimes sell into the hundreds of dollars a piece. It's definitely worth it. We sell a ton of postcards. I'm going to show you a few things that we bought this week. Got down here at the warehouse. Some of these are costume pieces. Some of these are nicer pieces. I'm going to talk about them and show you why we got them and what we're going to do. So right here, this is a sterling silver bracelet, and I bought it because it's got very interesting, these are kind of movable parts. These links are a little bit uncommon. I don't come across this very often. You got this big kind of claw clasp here like this, and sometimes the mark will be on the side of it, but a lot of times this portion right here that moves. So if I move this, you'll see a part contract and go inside. See that? Well, that little piece right there has a mark right there. It says 925, and that's the mark for sterling silver. So this was about $20. I think this is probably an $80 or so bracelet when I go to sell it. Moving on to other costume pieces. This was nice. I only paid $20 for this, and it is a set. You got a bracelet and you got some earrings here. We're looking at some nice colored rhinestones. We got some prong settings here. The backs are closed. These are definitely just plastic. They might even be glass, but it's fairly heavy, so they might be glass. Actually, if you look right here, this one is open back, but you've got the foil on the back. So what you're seeing here is not the actual natural color. That's the color of the foil behind it that is reflecting the light back to give you the color that it wants. But it is an attractive piece. You've got these sort of honey amber type stones with also this sort of like a smoky gray or greenish rectangular stone there. There's no markings as far as maker on this. I'll have to do some research, but for $20 and it being a set that goes together, I'm definitely going to make my money back on it. This was a cool piece I found hanging with a bunch of other costume jewelry, but I just know from handling tons and tons of costume pieces that this is definitely an older piece. This is likely something that was made in Austria or possibly West Germany. You've got a variety of things here. It's going to need some repair work, of course. So you've got this nice purple stone in the center as well as down here, some faux pearls, some fake turquoise pieces, and then some other tiny rhinestones. But unfortunately, there are a couple of these little stones that are missing. This still has value. It will still sell without being repaired, but if you want the best money, you'll repair it. This stone right here is a little out of place. I believe this has been replaced because if you look at the difference in color between this nice vibrant purple, almost like amethyst colored stone right here, if I bring it up, you'll see it's nice and purple. This, however, is like almost like a pinkish, soft, ruby color. So I'm going to try to see if I can replace that piece. If you look at the back, there's no maker's mark, but you will see some oxidization and some deterioration in the green down here from the metal. Now, I will say that this chain has seen better days. It's nice and gold colored down here, but it gets dirty, kind of brown up here. That's an ugly chain. And I honestly think this might detract from the piece, although it is probably original. So what I'm going to do is take another chain like this, that's also a costume chain, and I'm going to take this off and replace it. Because once I remove this dirty old chain and I replace it with one that's nice and bright and clean, I'm much more likely to sell this for the price that I want. I've got my serious face on, and I got my hat backwards to let you know how serious I am about what I'm about to say. Folks, this is not the only YouTube channel that we have. Please check out Postcard Planet, What Sold, High Spirits, Sound Machine. You will not be disappointed. You get to the end of the video and you think, oh no, it's over. I got to wait till next week. No. No, you do not. You can go right over to one of our other channels. And if you haven't subscribed to one of those or set it up to where it alerts you, please do that. There's a lot more information we're trying to give you, and I think you might enjoy it too. I'm excited about another instrument that came into the warehouse. Look at this beauty, folks. Right here is clearly a Gibson guitar. You're looking up here, and just look at this beautiful body here. It's so nice. What you're looking at here, folks, is called a B25 Deluxe. And this is made right around 1968, 1969. The thing that's so incredible about this instrument is just the condition that it's in. I see almost no issues at all. The only blemish I can see is a tiny little spot right here that at first I was concerned might be a crack, but looking underneath, there is no crack in the wood. That's just a crack in this kind of glaze, this finish, and so there's no problem. I'll keep an eye on it, but it is entirely flat. There is no raising below in the belly here. The bridge is pristine. The nut and saddle are pristine. It has excellent action. The frets have had almost no use at all. These are the original tuners. The neck is straight as an arrow. Almost no scratches, the tiniest ding. And folks, it has a great sound. Very nice. It doesn't have the widest nut, so, you know, if you have large hands, it would be difficult to play this guitar, but it is just phenomenal. Got a really good deal on it. I love these old vintage instruments. This is very similar to the LG2 that we got in recently. We've got out to a luthier right now getting some work done on her. But I love this because this is sort of more like a honey burst kind of color in contrast to the LG2, which is the same body size. It's X-braced in the same way. In fact, these B25s were basically a continuation of the LG2s. Now, the one I have is in 1948. This is in 1969. So you're looking at like 20 some years later, they're continuing the same body style. I love to have the compare and contrast. When I get that back, I'll be able to sit and play them both next to one another. The only difference there, aside from the look and the age, is that the LG2 has a little bit of a wider nut. It's a little bit more comfortable to play, but I love these old instruments. I'm just going to have a ball. you're looking at here is a collection of pipes that I got at, it was like a silent auction at a Habitat for Humanity restore, believe it or not. And I spent about $70 on these. And when I got them at first, I was a little bit concerned maybe I overpaid because these are back in a glass case. I couldn't handle them. I wasn't exactly sure, but I think I'm going to be able to make some money on these. Not a dramatic amount, of course, but definitely a little bit here. I'm going to talk about them a little bit. The first two here that you can see are, the brand is called K Woody. And I'm going to show you how to inspect pipes. Most pipes like this from the yesteryear are made out of a type of wood called briar wood. And briar wood is actually the root of a bush. And they come in like kind of big balls. And what they do is they scrape off or they carve off the bark and stuff. And then you've got this amazing grain that appears inside of this wood. It's also quite durable. It can stand up to heat quite nicely. And so that's made for a good substance for pipes to be made out of. But you can see right here, if I put my hand up and see if I can get it to zoom in here, it says K Woody Drinkless. Now, before I move on, I'm going to say that you can get on Google and you can look up K Woody pipe or K Woody pipe information, and there's a couple of websites that give you really good dating information for the different time periods that these were made in. But depending on what you have, you might have this little clover on the stem, or it might be stamped in a clover on the briar on the little shank here. But there's different words and things that happen. Right here you can see we've got something that says imported briars. This would not have come from the United States. This might have even been made in England, I'm not sure, but the briar did not come from whatever location was where they made it. And then you have a serial number. This particular one has 4 digits and a letter. The letter would reference a certain type of variation of this type, this shape, or this size. Okay, this would be considered what they call a straight pipe. Why? Because the stem and the shank are straight. There's no curvature. And so, but if you look, I mean, even though this probably could be polished up a little bit, that grain is just absolutely gorgeous. I love it. It's kind of like this, a little bit darker than a chestnut color, but it's very, very beautiful. This particular pipe and the one I'm holding right here were made sometime in the early to mid 1930s. So these are very old pipes going on like in the 90s, 90 years old pipes. Again, this says imported briar on it. This over here says K Woody white briar. And so this is actually briar wood. Okay, but it has some sort of coating on it. Now, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is a meerschaum pipe. Meerschaum being a white, kind of porous stone substance that's found on the coast of Turkey. And they use it in pipes. You see these white pipes. This also is white. This is actually ceramic, so this is not a meerschaum pipe. I don't have one to show you at this moment. But the point is, there's all types of different kinds. There's lots of resources out there. But you can see, in this case, the clover's on the side of the stem, not on the top. Now, most of the time, I'm going to go wash my hands right after this. Because, of course, these have been in people's mouths, people's hands. Who knows what they had on. I like to have gloves when I handle these. But, you know, oopsie here. I'm just going to go clean myself here in a moment. But people will still buy these. These would be considered estate pipes. Estate is a used pipe. People, especially that have been chewed on or are gross, they're going to pitch those stems as soon as they get them. They're going to measure the millimeter size of the inside here of where this stem attaches, and they're going to order $8, $10 new stem, and they may clean out the char, they may not, and they'll re-smoke them. They'll either smoke them, or sometimes they're just for collecting, putting up on the bookshelf, that sort of thing. But the point is, not just K Woody, but there are a lot of boutique and higher-end brands that have big values. Pipes have a very high sell-through rate on eBay, so I always sell my pipes, and I almost always, if not always, make money. It's just a matter of how long it takes. I also wanted to note a couple more of these here that are interesting. This one right here is a ceramic bowl, as I told you. You've got this hand-painted and glazed bowl, which features a little windmill there. It says Baronite, and if you rotate it, you'll see it says Holland. So this is a Dutch scene, which is pretty standard. You probably knew that already. But the stem, when you pull it out, it's interesting. This is actually made of a solid piece of wood with the bark, like a stem, still on it. On this side, you have a bit of cork that has been drilled with wood inside and glued in. And then on this side, you have the stem. And when you have a stem, by the way, usually, almost always, you're going to want to twist it as opposed to pulling straight out, because sometimes, as in the case with this one, it is held on with threading, and if you try to pull this, you're going to destroy this threading and possibly make it impossible to refit the stem back on. And sometimes they're metal inserts, brass inserts, all kinds of stuff depending on the age and the type. But this is a Bakelite stem, which is an old type of plastic. They made all kinds of things, handles for different things. They made jewelry out of Bakelite, and it is highly collectible. Not as much stems, but jewelry pieces are. But this was just a cool piece because we've incorporated here wood, cork, an old type of plastic, and then finally ceramic. So a lot of different materials had to come together to make this pipe. I think it's cool. It definitely has some collectability value. Here is another pipe, and this is actually the first of its kind that I found with this brand name. If you look right here, it says Pall Mall, which is like a cigarette brand, if you have ever heard of that. It says Choice Briar, and though it is not marked, this is actually a sterling silver band that goes around. And sometimes, folks, these old pipes will have sterling silver and even solid gold bands. I've bought and sold pipes that have 18 and 22 karat solid gold bands on them before. That was pretty common back then. You've got another stem here. I'm going to just try. I've not tried to take this off, but I'm going to try to rotate that way. I'm going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This one does not have any threading, which is why I'm rotating it. I don't want to mess anything up. Pull it out just so you can see what this looks like. You've got an extended piece of this, probably an old type of lucite plastic here. And you can see when I say band, I really do mean that. It's just a thin band of metal around it, and the rest of this is still the briar wood. Okay, but this particular one is carved in sort of a bizarre way. It's not carved like an animal. It's not carved to accent the briar wood. In fact, this piece of wood is probably low-quality briar wood that did not have really good colored wood grain. And so what do? Well, you don't pitch it. Let's just carve it up in an interesting way and hide the fact that it doesn't have good grain, make it interesting in some other way anyways. And so here we go. This is cool. Someone will get this. I will polish up that band most likely to just draw attention to the piece before I sell it. And then lastly here, I know this is a lot on pipes for those who don't care about pipes. We have this piece. Look how long this is. I don't know. I'm going to go as far as to say this is probably somewhere in an 18 to 20 inch stem for a pipe. And what we're looking at here is wood. You've got brass fittings here. You've got more brass along here. You've got mother of pearl inlay, almost like you would see inside of the fret of an instrument. Another brass, some more wood. This is some sort of like a cloth type woven material here that is sort of bendable and flexible. You've got some sort of a lucite plastic on the end, this sort of tassel fabric here, and then this is a horn of some kind of animal. I don't know what kind of animal, but it's horn. So you've got 3 or 4 different types of materials in the use of this. This is what they would call a German hunting pipe, a German hunter pipe. And what is missing here, unfortunately, is the bowl. It would be a bowl that would also be fitted down in here, and most likely it would be ceramic like that. You can find these, and these sometimes sell up into the hundreds of dollars when they're complete. Because this is not, it does not have the bowl, I won't get as much money out of it. But this, I could maybe sell this for between $30 and $40. The K Woodies are probably going to be in that $30 to $40 a piece range. These 2 pieces, I probably could get my money back. These other 4, this is where I could get my profit in this particular purchase. Moving on to some costume pieces. This is some stuff I picked up this week. Here we have a nice pair of, they are made to look like mother of pearl, but they are in fact plastic. And on the back you can see this nice bright kind of copper color. And what I actually believe is that these may be gold filled. I've not tested them yet, but you know, gold filled pieces, I think these are probably fairly old. You can see that they didn't really care what the back looked like. You've got this pretty wide glue residue on the outside that kind of came out. That's sort of a telltale sign that this is like a cheaper, generally cheaper piece. Still has some value. I got it so cheaply, I know I'll make some money on it. This piece right here is a nice little, kind of a bangle bracelet. It's quite soft. When I bend it, it bends real easily. That tells me a couple of things. First off, it tells me it's not gold or silver. Gold is extremely hard as a metal, and it does not matter if it is 10 karat or 18 karat. It's pretty hard. Now, 10 karat is the strongest because there's more base metal for strength in it than 18 karat. Of course, 24 karat pure gold is fairly soft, but the more material you put into it and you lower the gold content, the stronger, more durable the metal is. But silver and gold do not bend this easily. So I know from the get-go that this is, inside, it is a base alloy metal. On the front here, it has an etched engraved name. It says Tammy. So old Tammy was wearing this around. You got a cool kind of design in here. If I try to investigate further, and I rotate around the inside to look and see if I can find any maker's marks, I rotate around until I discover that right here at the top is some writing, and it says the name Vandel. That's the manufacturer name, and then it says 1/20th 12K GF. So 1/20th of the metal of this is 12 karat gold filled. So the inside is in fact a base alloy, like I suspected, something soft, a soft metal, but there is a percentage of solid gold on the outside of it. It's a vintage piece. We'll make some money on that. Right here, I have this really cool brooch. I mean, look at this thing. We've got some very clear, sort of soft blue rhinestones with prong settings, something simulating a sapphire in the middle. We got another light blue stone, a couple of these peaches. What do you call that when it kind of shines and it's kind of that weird carnival kind of color?
Be Aurora Borealis.
Aurora Borealis, that's right, exactly. And so this is interesting because it's like a stinking insect, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of cool, and you'll see in the back that it is a pin. Some people lately have been saying, well, is it you call it a pin or do you call it a brooch? Well, I call it a brooch or a pin. It has a pin on the back of it. I guess it sort of depends on what they called it in the area that you lived in. But I think either are fine, and they use them sort of interchangeably on eBay. But these kinds of cool, interesting looking, complicated pins, brooches, whatever you want to call them, can sell for pretty good money, especially ones that are a little bit unique. I've not come across one like this. It's not a super high value item, but it does have the open backs for these rhinestones. I'm not sure the maker because it didn't have a mark, but this was only a $5 piece, and I think that I could get as much as $30, $35 for that. This was a fun piece to find. Never seen one like it. On the back here, you see this little ring. You've got some blue rhinestones back here. You've got 3 different rows of bright blue rhinestones as I rotate. And then on the end, you've got a single, very light, almost simulating like an aquamarine color there with a halo of blue stones around it as well. I'll pull this up so you can see it. It's pretty cool. Now, the deal is this came on a keychain. And it was a rather cheap keychain. When I got it and I saw the link that was used to connect them, I realized that the keychain was not originally a part of this design. It was added on later. Was this a fob for like a pocket watch, like an end of that? Was this a pendant? I suspect it was a pendant on the end of a necklace. So what I'm going to do is take another costume necklace that's this same gold color. I'm going to get a ring and put it on as a pendant. I think that I will maximize my value by selling it with this. It only cost me $3. So we put a chain on this, with this on the end, it being as unique as it is, I might be able to get upwards of $40 for it, maybe slightly less, but I'll definitely make some good money on it compared to what I paid. All right, tell me when you're ready.
It's on.
Okay, man, this is difficult. Folks, cousins, look at me right now. This is what I would look like if I was born and was my age in the 1800s. It's these little old spectacles. And man, if I wore them much longer, it'd give me a headache. These are cool little things. You can see this particular kind is made where the lenses are open with no frames around them. And they're really just held together by the bridge, the nose piece here, and then the parts that go back toward, what do they call these parts that go back towards your ears? Do you know?
Earpieces?
The earpieces. Oh, well, I guess that's kind of intuitive, isn't it? The cool thing about these old glasses, folks, is that old ones like this oftentimes have gold content. It's true. And if you look on the inside, on the underside of the bridge of the nose, and or on the side of what I'm going to start calling the earpiece here, you can see that they have gold content. It'll say the same thing as the other piece a minute ago. It'll say, sometimes they're solid gold, but in this case, it's gold filled. People buy these sometimes for crafting purposes. Sometimes they buy them just for little curio things to put up on bookshelves. But other times they'll remove the lenses. Sometimes they reuse the lenses. Other times they take the metal and they scrap it for the gold value. But I buy these anytime I can find them for about $8 or less. I sell these regularly for $20 as a baseline and up. If they have the original case with them, you can get a lot more money for them. These were cool. These came in that lot, didn't they, Peaches, that we paid $15 for?
That's right.
With that barometer and that little thing with the ink pens in it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so this is another one. So again, I can sell this for at least $20. I got all my money back on that lot. I'm going to make some profit. That's nice. Now, let's look down here real quick at these pieces. I'll try to fly through. We've had a lot to go over today. What you're looking at are a couple of earrings, okay? And they have what they call an omega back. And why do they call it an omega back? Well, I believe it's the Greek symbol. Am I right on that, Peaches?
It sure looks like it.
It's the omega sign, and it folds in and out. I've found solid gold earrings before that had omega, and on the if you just pull it up like this on the back, they'll have a hallmark that'll say it. And this particular set of earrings is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, these little bands that you see are actually solid gold. In fact, there's a tiny little mark right here where my little pinky nail is at that says 14K. So these are solid gold bands. It's such a tiny amount of gold that's not really worth much. Now, I don't know. This is a silver color, so I believe this is not silver or gold. I think it's just a base metal. But this is really just for looks. But the other thing that's interesting about these, and I don't know if you can see close enough to see the cross hatching in here, but if you were already suspecting it, then you are in fact correct. These are made out of ivory. Okay, ivory. And so the downside here is that even though these might be attractive to somebody, they might want to wear them, they might like gold, the problem is they're made out of ivory, so I cannot sell them because it is illegal to sell ivory on platforms like eBay or really anywhere in the country because of the senseless killing of those poor animals to harvest their tusks. And so here we are. We got these. They came in. They're cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. I can't sell them, but I just wanted to show you what ivory looks like. A couple other cool pieces. I was real proud of this. I was going on and on about it yesterday. Peaches probably was tired of hearing me talk about it, but we found this at an antique store, and they're just cufflinks. They don't seem like they're all that special, but I'll tell you, let me get this pen so you can see where I point. On the side here, there's a number right here, and the number says 333, and there's a little symbol, probably a maker's mark. But you're like, well, what does 333 matter at all, Rusty? What's 333? Well, you may or may not be aware that 333 is the European hallmark for 8-karat gold. There's 8-karat gold. Why, yes, there is. In fact, there's 8-karat gold. There's 9-karat gold, 10, 12, 14, 18, 22, and 24. And so these are likely made not in the United States, they're likely made in Europe. They're holding the European hallmark for 8-karat gold. So these are solid gold. That means that there are 333 parts out of 1,000, 33.3% solid gold. Okay? And so here we are. These cost me $2, folks, and I'm seeing 8-karat gold cufflinks selling for in the $100 and more range online. So that's going to be a great one. Moving on real fast, we got this very kind of sort of outdated as far as design is considered. We're looking at sort of like 1940s, 1950s design ring. You've got a lab-created sapphire here. How do I know that? Well, because the hue and the color is too perfect. It's too nice. Also, there's absolutely no inclusions in it, and the stones around it are quite gaudy and gross. These are sort of ugly stones. They're they're not real shiny. However, it is set in what is marked on the inside as 10 karat. So this is a 10 karat white gold ring with a lab created sapphire and probably cubic zirconias around here. I paid $50 for this, but it's 10 karat gold. It's about a size 6.5. That's right at the lower edge of the average for sizes of women. This is a women's ring. I expect to sell this for $100 or more. And then finally here with the gold pieces, I got this set. I paid I think I paid $120 or something like that, $125 for this set. I paid up for this. They are old. You're looking at a cameo that's carved out of shell. And this is out of 14 karat gold. So the gold around is 14 karat, and it comes with a set of screw back 14 karat gold earrings. But this is probably a $200 to a $250 set. So I was happy to find that. What you're looking at here, folks, are vintage, well, more like antique, stick pins. And in case you weren't aware, old stick pins like this, though there are many that are costume, meaning they're not made of fine materials, there are many out there, the older ones especially, that have precious gemstones and are made out of gold or silver. What you're looking at here are 14 different examples of either 14 or 10 karat solid gold stick pins. In fact, I believe that only 2 out of these 14 or 10 karat, the rest are 14 karat. Now, Peaches, if you would do me a kindness here and come over to the end, and you'll start here. I'll pull this up. You'll see this is one of the, maybe the only one that's made out of white gold. But what you're seeing is a decent size, maybe a 0.3 carat single diamond in the center. You've got 4 other diamonds around, and then 2 trillion cut blue sapphires. It's a gorgeous piece, probably one of the nicest ones I've got here. But if you pan around, you've got others. These are utilizing garnet, in this case, simulated sapphire or ruby here. We've got one with a small emerald and a Celtic knot situation. Here is made to look like a clover in some case. Here we got a single diamond again, as well as right here, a really cool piece. Another small Celtic knot with a genuine ruby in it. This one's lovely, and I've actually got an 18 karat gold brooch that matches this. The only difference is this is featuring a seed pearl in the center, whereas the brooch has a diamond. But you're looking at a knot situation with some painted floral motif out of enamel paint. Now, unfortunately, some of these are not marked as gold. So I had to do some scratch testing and some other testing to determine whether or not they were made out of gold. But if they're going to be marked, let me show you some places. This is another beautiful piece, 14 karat gold with a decent sized diamond in there right now. I'm going to use this as just a pointer. I've got 3 pieces here. One place that some of these will be marked is actually on the pin portion itself. So here's an example where, and you may not be able to see it, but right here on the pin, I'm going to probably try to bring this up for you. Right here, right there, is it actually says, you can barely maybe see some scratches there. That's actually a imprint on the pin saying 14K. Another one right here, same situation. Could be anywhere along here, but in these cases, it's right there. This little mark. I'm having a hard time. There we go. Right there, a little mark. It says 14 karat gold, and then hold it right there, Peaches. I'm going to pull this up as well. Sometimes it's on the very back as well, not on the pin, but on the portion that is at the end, the tip. So in this case, on one side, we have a maker's mark, and on the other side, it says 14 karat. We're having a hard time zooming in, but you get the idea. Always look on the back of these and also on the pin. If it doesn't have a mark, it doesn't mean it doesn't have silver content. You need to do further testing. But if you see these and you know where to look, then sometimes you'll find what you're looking for. Since I got those cufflinks that were said 333 on them, and I happen to know that they were made out of gold, you may not be aware that the European Hallmark standards and the United States Hallmark standards are different for the way that they mark the carat purity of gold. If you look down here, I just wrote this out just so that you know. If you ever see these markings, do not look away. Do not be fooled. Do not think I'm just looking at costume jewelry, because these actually mean something. If you see 333, that means it's made out of 8 karat solid gold. If it says 375, that's 9 karat. 417 is 10 karat. 585 is 14 karat, and 750 is 18 karat. Folks, in the last 2 years, I've come across 3 really nice, heavy gold bracelets that said 750 on them, and I got them for $3 and $5 a piece. They turned out, in fact, to be 18 karat solid gold, and they were worth nearly $2,000 a piece. These things are out there. People don't know what they have sometimes, and I just want you to be equipped with the knowledge to evaluate your own things and things you come across, because these things slip through the cracks and people don't know. Education will really help you out in the field. The last thing I want to show you folks today is something that I am uber excited about. I've not seen it yet because it's wrapped, but this is a vintage, well, not vintage, it's very antique. This is an early 1700s oil painting that we got in. It had no frame on it. In fact, it was so old that someone had taken the original canvas, glued it onto a new canvas, and re-stretched it. The problem was, though, however, that it had been stretched on a new stretcher that was out of square. And if you're trying to put a perfectly square frame on a stretcher that is not perfectly square, as you can imagine, you're going to have some gaps. So I had to work with them a little bit. We had to get creative to figure out how they could put this together without having to take it off and restretch it and risk damaging the piece. This was done at the Frugal Framer over in Asheville, North Carolina. Super nice people. They did an excellent job with this. I'm going to open it now. We're going to take a look really fast. I hope you're as excited as I am. So we're looking at the back here. As you can see, initially, if you want to come over here, Peaches, and you can see the inspection of this, you know, we don't have a beveled a stretcher here. This is an older stretcher. You can see the keys put in place here to tighten it and make it stretch. You can see the old tacks here, and you can see the residue from the glue that was used and some of the wax in preparing and putting this on a new piece of canvas. On the back, you're going to see some other telltale signs of age. If I lift this up and I flip her over, you can see some information that had been left here from years past. We've got writing on the stretcher on the back here. We've got old writing here as well. It's priced $50 at one time. This only cost $50. They believe that this was from a Gothic monastery back in the monastery itself was around in the 1200s. This is a painting depicting that, but let me show you and you can determine for yourself. Wow. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, I don't know what the glare is going to look like, Peaches, as we're looking at it, but this is just a phenomenal piece. We're looking at essentially a monastery. We've got what I believe are nuns and other children and other people in this area. You've got a nice window with light coming in. The light is coming in, and it's illuminating the drapery or whatever is here. And you've got stuff going on in the back here too. You've got a chandelier. It's dark. There's another window. My guess is that the varnish on this has yellowed and is making things darker than they were originally. But luckily, the foreground figures are still quite bright. There's nice colors in the reds and the blues. You know, the primary colors are the black and the white, which is customary regalia for the nuns. But even look at this, like even the little bonnet that's on this woman's head, it's made in such a way that it looks as though it's lace. I mean, they did a really good job with the lines, the blues, the colors. Look at this basket. It looks like woven wicker basket here. Whoever did this was quite good at what they did. Now, I will say the only downside is that every one of these women's faces looks like almost the same woman. They didn't do a real good job of changing up facial features. But you know what? The overall look of it is awesome. I think, I don't know what you think, Peaches, but I think that the frame looks really nice for this because you're incorporating some of that kind of gilt and yellowed, and some of those beige colors are kind of coming through and really pulling things together with the frame that we chose. And it's just gorgeous. It's not signed, unfortunately. It would be nicer if it was, because I could do a better job of dating and determining a value. But this is a one-of-a-kind piece, folks. This is a really awesome thing. And again, shout out to the Frugal Framer. Thank you guys so much for your hard work and bringing this to a place where I'm not going to bang it around. I'm not going to be worried anymore. I can put it on a wall and people can enjoy it. Cousins, thank you so much for showing up for this video. I hope you learned something, and at least maybe it was a little bit entertaining. Don't forget, check out our other channels. Check out What's Sold and Postcard Planet, High Spirits, Sound Machine. We got a bunch of them little boogers out there. Please come back next week. We got more videos. We'll see you soon. Rusty hair.